The Opticor. To some, this word has connotations with power, damage, and an oversized corpus laser cannon that's capable of obliterating everything in its path. But to the rest of you, you're probably clueless and have absolutely no idea what I'm going on about, but the latest operation that Warframe gave us, Buried Depths, we got a new variation of the Opticor, the Opticor Vandal. And in this video, I'll tell you how to obtain it, and where to obtain it, and go into why certain people hate this weapon and have a big distaste for it, and why it's still amazing. Oh yeah, and we've also got a RIven as well, so let's get into it. Good evening, this is the Urban Spaceman, and you're watching the Urban Space Zone, and welcome back, and it's good to be back. I can't express how good it is to be back, to be honest. I've been away for so long, and it's just so refreshing to do this. And in that time, I've become a new person, a more efficient version of the Urban Spaceman with a brand new body to boot. And that has been put to the test as of recent with the new operation. As I said, Buried Depths. And I'll be giving my thoughts on that event in a separate video, but for now, the point of interest is the main reward, the Opticor Vandal, obtained by sealing 100 Fermia fractures in Orb Valis. To seal a fracture, you must locate the Exploiter Orb, who always spawns around the Temple of Prophet, and find a coolant arachnoid. It will drop some coolant, where you'll then proceed to fractures scattered all over the Orb Valis, and drop the coolant into it. And after that, it's pretty much a waiting game before the fracture has sealed, where you'll take the canister, which is slightly refined, and do that 3 more times until the canister is fully refined, and then you'll get diluted Fermia. Important to the second phase of the operation, which, again, my full thoughts on that will be saved for another video. After that, you rinse and repeat, and oh, honestly, it's not fun. It really isn't fun. In fact, it's the complete opposite. There's nothing to break the monotony of sealing fractures over and over again, and the amount you need to seal to get rewards. It's absolutely bonkers! Aye, fair enough. Now, when you refine a full coolant canister, you seal 7 fractures instead of only 4, but that still isn't enough in my opinion. It doesn't make the grind any less unbearable. But once you do that, you'll be awarded with the Opticor Vandal, which has been getting a mixed reception as of lately, which is what makes this weapon really interesting. Like, usually I disregard the people who don't like it solely based on reduced damage, but then I thought to myself, why? And the thing is, it goes way deeper than you initially thought, and for the sake of pacing, I'll save this epiphany till later, but let's compare and see exactly what we're dealing with here. So the Opticor Vandal seems like a direct upgrade from the Opticor, looking at the crit chance and damage being at 24% and 2.5 times respectively, compared to the Opticor's 20% crit chance and 2 times crit damage multiplier. The status chance was buffed up from 20 on the original to 30 on the Vandal, also doubling the fire rate from 1 shot per second to 2 shots per second, as well as bumping up the magazine capacity from 5 to 8, and reducing the reload time as well. And it seems as if this will make this a direct upgrade. But there's one point we're kind of missing out here. The damage, to some, is a deal breaker, because it reduces the damage from 1000 to 400. With the AoE effect being cut as well from 400 to 200. And this sacrifice in damage made it feel so much more weaker to people who were fans of the original Opticor. And even though I absolutely love this weapon, and the DPS potential far exceeds the Opticor, it just didn't click with certain people. And I was wondering to myself, why? Shouldn't they be happy about this? I know opinions are subjective and questioning them is ultimately a lost cause, but I want to understand the viewpoint of someone who simply loves the original Opticor, but was disappointed by this because, from my perspective, like I said, this weapon's amazing. It's everything I wanted the Opticor to be, because the original was too slow for me. It just didn't click with me, in all honesty. And the Vandal is an absolute must-have in my opinion. But here's the thing. People were drawn to the original Opticor because of the raw damage. It boasted the highest damage in a rifle in the entire game, and damage isn't everything in Warframe, but there's a certain novelty to having a massive cannon that feels impactful and very powerful, and boasts the highest damage of any weapon in the game. The Opticor had a distinct feel to it. It wasn't your average rifle that had constant fire. It was a powerful cannon that had a lot of, how should I put it, to it. And this is only more evident when I fired the original Opticor after using the Vandal. The sounds are completely different, And of course, since the fire rate's higher on the Opticor Vandal, it makes the beams feel less impactful than the original, giving the two guns totally different feels and playstyles. When you use the Opticor, you feel like in any situation, one shot will take anything out, and it feels really good doing so. It has a lot of weight to it, and the Vandal feels like a revision of that, but a lot more efficient with a lot less impact in the shots. But, like I said, has higher DPS potential, so on paper it sounds better, but it still didn't click with people. And the reason I bring this all up is not to only look at things from a much different perspective, but to portray that the reception to this weapon isn't as simple as a damage decrease. More accurately, people who love the Opticor believe that the Vandal simply doesn't feel like the Opticor anymore. An upgrade to them would be an immense increase in raw damage, and to have the same oomph as the original. I will fully admit, I was going to go into this video making fun of the notion, because I only seen what was on the surface level. A bunch of people angry at a damage decrease, even though raw damage isn't what makes a weapon good. But the situation's more complex. Rather than that, what it truly is people who are disappointed that the upgraded version to their beloved weapon didn't feel like the weapon they fell in love with. And I can completely understand that sentiment. And even going back firing the Opticor, I feel how impactful those shots are. And that has a certain novelty that the Vandal just can't replicate. But ultimately, no one is right or wrong here. If you love the Opticor and want to upgrade, just know that this weapon feels and sounds completely different and may not be worth your time. But for people like me who just want a good weapon that can fire a lot and nothing more, we're in luck. And with all that out of the way, let's finally get into the build, and of course the RIven, the Opticor Critata, which adds a lot of crit and a lot of damage, with less status duration. But then again, status isn't going to be the thing we're using here, it's all about crit. And we've got 111% of that, which is a very satisfying number for some reason. And no, this is not a god mod, and I'll be damned if I ever fucking roll this thing again. So yeah, I'm not doing that. We will have to make do with what we've got. Not that it isn't a lot, it's just it could be a lot better, I suppose. And the build is bog standard as far as Opticor builds go. We've got Serration and Split Chamber for damage, and multi-shot respectively, along with Vital Sense and Point Strike for crit chance and crit damage, with two 90% elemental mods which can be swapped out depending on what faction you're going up against, and Heavy Caliber, because the accuracy drop really isn't that noticeable, and it isn't that much of a downside in this particular instance. And it's like a secondary Serration without too much of the accuracy loss, so why not put it on anyways? And if you don't have a RIven mod, then mods like Vigilante Armaments for more multi-shot may do the trick, or maybe another damage mod. The possibilities are endless if you don't have a RIven, and you don't really need one in all honesty. This is just... RIvens are just overkill. I couldn't really test the build of Vigilante Armaments replacing the RIven because I've kind of locked myself into this with the 6 forma that I put on it, but there's so many alternatives out there for this RIven that you're covered if you don't have one. I would say that this weapon is endgame viable, but endgame is subjective in Warframe. My endgame may not be your endgame. Some people run sorties as their endgame, others go into missions for 3 hours and fight level 999 enemies, so there's a major gap there, but I can confidently say that this weapon with this build dominates sorties, as well as bosses like the new boss, the Exploiter Orb. But to push this a bit further than what we would normally encounter without spending too much time in a mission, yep, simulacrum time. At this point, it's a necessity. It's a necessary evil in these sorts of videos. I mean, if I didn't put this segment in here, it will probably have as much complaints as the damn weapon I'm talking about right now, so let's just suck it up and get straight into it, shall we? Against level 130 corrupted bombards and heavy gunners, it holds its own really damn well, killing them with their respective weaknesses equipped in about 2 or 3 shots, which isn't as good as some weapons, but that's because this weapon really isn't intended to be a one-shot, one-kill sort of weapon like the original Opticor was, but more like a semi-automatic laser cannon without the auto-fire, if that makes a lick of sense. Its AoE damage on its own, of course, isn't a lot, but it's a nice addition to what you're getting, and of course, when you're shooting at something, it's a little bit extra damage there for anything that surrounds that. It's also important to note that you can fire a 50% charged shot, since this is a charged weapon, well, much like the Opticor can, which will increase the fire rate, of course, if the already increased fire rate just wasn't enough for you already. but it makes the beams weaker, so use it with caution. And to top it all off, the ammo economy. It's absolutely brilliant for this weapon. After strictly using this for about 3 or 4 days, I haven't found myself needing ammo not once. I haven't ran out of ammo or used an ammo pizza because the ammo economy for this weapon is so damn brilliant. And I'm sure the Opticor is just as good, if not better, with a decreased fire rate, but that's to be expected, isn't it? So that's most is covered. And let me just give my overall thoughts before we get into the last segment, which is, of course, the Harrow segment. I'm always going to do these in weapon reviews because, of course, Harrow is my main. It may not have as much impact as the original Opticor, but it has a lot of advantages over the Opticor. As you know, like, mostly everything's increased. Status chance, crit damage, fire rate, and you can only take raw damage so far in Warframe. And in my opinion, it's a needed sacrifice for this weapon. If you're not an already established fan of the Opticor and have not grown to love how the original Opticor fires, then this has a lot of value for you. But if you already have a forward Opticor with a RIven placed on it, especially, then it may not be worth it for you. It's also a very big slog to get this thing, so take that into consideration. So, now all we need to do is to push this already high 111% crit chance with Harrow's Covenant. Because what would an Urban Spaceman weapon video be without pushing the crit to its limits? To squeeze a little more juice out of it, let's get Jojo with Cat's Eye for a sweet, sweet crit chance buff. So Harrow, how exactly did you manage to acquire the research labs? It's much better than the old rundown laboratory I was in. It's all thanks to you and your efforts. This is my gift to you. Wait, what do you mean by a gift? I'm entrusting you as the leader of my new division, called the Archive, where we strive to find mysteries in the world of Warframe. And that really wasn't subtle foreshadowing for the next video, wasn't it? No, that wasn't subtle at all, but thank you, Harrow. I won't let you down. And as always, this has been the Urban Spaceman. Like if you liked the video, dislike if you didn't, subscribe to become a member of the Archive, and turn on that notification bell to be a part of my elite squadron, as well as becoming one with the Conscious Zone. And I suggest you also check out Elo Marshmallow's video on the Opticor Vandal as well. Not only is that video really damn good, but his whole channel is pretty high in quality, and I'd suggest you give him a sub, or at the very least check out his channel. And hey, tell him that the Spaceman sent ya, haha. Now anyway, this is the Urban Spaceman, signing out.